Hi, our scripture and scrapping for our last time for 2024 is Ezekiel 36:26. Moreover, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. Ezekiel 36:26. I've always loved that idea of having a heart of flesh instead of a heart of stone. And I saw this quilting design, and I thought this would be a beautiful layout to go with that verse. So this is the first method that I used, and I'll show you what I did, but I'm also going to show you maybe a little bit easier method. And this page will be done pretty much the same way that I did it the first time, but I'm going to change the orientation of the hearts to go up and down instead. And I'll tell you the little changes I make. But let's start with the big heart first. You'll notice on this, I have 2 strips of 1/4 by 12-inch paper on each side. And I've done that on all 4 sides on a sheet of white cardstock. And it kind of gives you that crisscross. The first one I put right at the edge. The second one I put a 1/4 inch away, with the edge of it being at 3/4 of an inch. I wanted to leave in the middle a 10.5 by 10.5 square for us to do our quilt pattern on. So that's one way you could do it. If you don't have much paper, that saves you from having a background sheet, and you can just use little strips. I've cut some out of the blue paper that I have today, just to kind of demonstrate. The other thing, if you're using a full sheet as your base, you would want to use your scoring blade and score it at 6 inches down and 6 inches across. And I would go ahead and score at 3/4 inch on each side as well. That would give you a placement for these strips. And I'm just going to kind of show you. I'm not going to tape them down. But you would take the strips, put one at the edge, and then you would put another one, 3/4 inch away. A 1/4 of an inch away, leaving a 1/4 inch in between. And the inside edge is going to be right at that 3/4 of an inch line. And you'll do that on all 4 sides, which will give you that crisscross pattern. But that is a little harder when you're trying to tape it down. To get it straight the way you like it takes a little bit more time. So I'm going to show you a little faster way, but that is the way you would do that outside edge. And that's kind of working from the outside towards the inside. I think a little bit simpler is to work from the inside toward the out. So I'm going to take a 10.5 inch square. That's this part right here that we would have in the middle, and build that quilted heart right on top of that. And then we'll set that on a solid sheet of paper and add 1/4 inch strips right in that centered area in between to still give you that double matted look, but maybe a little differently. So let me start with this. With this 10.5 by 10.5 inch piece, I'm going to use my scoring blade and score it at 5 1/4. That gives me a center line going up and down. And then I'm going to do the same thing going side to side. And that you could use a pencil if you'd rather, and lightly draw that on there. You could use a ruler if you're good with keeping everything straight. But I thought this scoring line, thank you, Anne Elizabeth, might be a good way to center things, and especially for all the little pieces we're going to put on for the quilt. So I have already cut a bunch of triangles and a couple of squares. you need a bunch for this particular design. Not as many for the big as for the border, but I'm going to start with putting one in each corner, and I think I'm going to do some light blue. I'm using repositionable tape, that way in case I need to change something, I can. And I'm going to put my corners, and you can do them all the same color, you could do them different colors. It's whatever looks good to you. Let's set these squares out here. I find the other two corners. There we go. I wanted something that would have a good contrast between the white and that dark blue that's going to be underneath it. Okay, so we've got those. Then we need to use our centering lines on each side and the top and the bottom, and we're going to put a triangles at each of those lines like this, all the way around, and I'm going to mix and match them, get that quilted look. And you'll kind of turn them back and forth to get your edges along the edge of the paper. Like I said, I'm using the scoring line. You may not be able to see it. Let me hold it up a little closer. But you can see when I get it close, I've got a scoring line going this way, and I've got a scoring line going up here. So that helps me get my edges to where I want them. And there's all, you can use as many patterns as you like. You don't have to use different patterns at all if you want. If you want it all the same color, you could do that too and still get that quilted look to it. I don't think I'll use that one because it's got a fish going in a weird way. So we'll save that for later. And this is the hardest part for me, is just choosing a color and then sticking with it. I'm not using a particular pattern. I don't like to put ones that are exactly the same next to each other or touching each other. And some of my measurements don't seem to be exactly right. I started with 1 3/4 inch squares, and I cut them diagonally to give me triangles. And there's a bunch. And some of my cuts were a little better than others, but that's close enough. So then you can see we have this area here, and that's pretty nice by itself, but we want to make our heart. And I'm going to start with the squares, which I buried, and that's going to be right here on each side. I'm going to do this one. This is for my mother-in-law's page for our cruise. And so this has some little cruise ships on it. I may have to do 2 videos depending on how long this takes. We're at 10 minutes right now, so that's, I may just get through the first page. So we'll see. And then you're going to fill in the rest of the heart with your triangles that you cut. You can see this touches this. You want to end up with the bottom of your heart touching down here. Let's see if we can do that. A little different color. And another reason for using the repositionable tape is you may find you've got a little bit of gaps. You may have to scoot things over. I'll do that when we get to the end. But we're just alternating these little triangles to form that heart shape. This is helpful when you have a pattern to look at, to give you an idea of where to put your triangles, and what directions. And so you can see this side seems to be a little bit further over. I'm just going to kind of respace that just a hair. My diagonal cutting may have been a little bit off, but it will be okay. And the last one, get the plaid in here. So there's our basic design. You've got your heart. Oops, I'm missing one piece right there. Not quite done. Let's see if I can fill that in with another piece. And there, that's the basic idea. Then I have a verse with the other. I put that here. I may add that there, or I may use it for the other page. And then let me finish putting it down onto a base sheet of paper. I'm using designer paper for this instead of, you could use cardstock. I do not have my mat with me, but that would be good for centering. I'm just going to eyeball it. So that's that. And then I'm going to add 1/4 by 12-inch strips on each side and top and bottom. Kind of mimic what we did with the 2 strips here and here. This time we're just putting 1 strip to divide that. It will give you a little bit different pattern here at the crisscross at the bottom. But it still gives you that double matted look And I think it's a little easier measurement-wise, working with your square and then adding on instead of trying to create your square. But you can try it any way you'd like it. I'm using white paper from the top loading pages, and some of it's a little bit longer than our designer paper. I can see it's kind of sticking off here. I'll trim that later. And that's page number 1. I'm going to stop the video now and I'll do a second video for page number 2.